SAfm Sports Special.
SAfm Sports Special 104 to 107 FM. We're chatting paintball right now, and it's funny. Paintball's one of those sports I mean, every time I get invited to a bachelor's party or a birthday party, it turns out to be a paintball. So it's one of those, and I don't want to say sports in inverted commas, but a lot of people associate paintball with that sort of thing. But there's actually a massive sport behind it, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome into the studio today Paul Grobler and Reginald Houghton. Welcome to SAfm Sports Special, gents. Thanks for taking the time to join us on Saturday afternoon.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
I wanted to just chat a little bit about paintball as a sport. There's a couple of different aspects to it. There's a lot of people who have a paintball gun that just recreationally go to their little, is it a paintball field? What do you?
Field is
paintball
correct, yeah.
field,
Yeah.
and they go and potter around on a weekend. But there's a lot of people that take this sport very, very seriously. Paul, tell me a little bit about the sport as a sport.
Yes. I think the main thing, like you've mentioned earlier, is that a lot of people do see the sport, they think typical bachelor party or the typical recreational side to it, and they don't see the guys playing the competition side of it. Now, one of the things that's not new, but definitely that people don't know about is the speedball side. So speedball is extremely action-packed. It gets played in a confined area, so with netting around it, typically 5-man or 3-man games. So you've got players 3-man or 5-man on opposing sides. And they will play it in a 3-minute or a 5-minute game with inflatable bunkers that's set up in a symmetrical way. So it's a very specific type of layout that they play as well. There's a lot of communication that takes place. It's an extremely fast-paced, action-packed game. Definitely a spectator sport as well.
Because it's not a massive, it's not a huge area that you're playing in.
We're talking typically, a 5-man field is typically about 48 by 36 meters in length and width.
Reginald, Paul mentioned the speedball side of it. There's another side of it too, bushball.
Yeah, we call it Milsim paintball.
Okay.
It's military simulation, so that's more like a social type of thing, although you get your competitions and your tournaments and your leagues and stuff like that. It's your typical paintball with camouflage and your guns that you use, which we also call markers. It's more military style, so it's got a buttstock at the back and a shroud, and it just looks military.
Okay.
So you get different games there as well, very competitive as well in the leagues, but overall it's just fun and like a social, kind of like your bachelors, just with a bit of
a bit more class.
Exactly.
Also, a very interesting thing to note is there's the typical bushballer and speedballer feud always, if you want to put it
like
that way.
the mountain bikers against the road cyclists.
Yeah, there we go.
Exactly.
Typical,
Exactly.
and you get your extreme bushballers, and that's the only way to go. And then you've got your extreme speedballers. But I must say, here in South Africa, we get a lot of the guys that plays both and enjoys both. Typically, you see your bushballers with more camo clothing in general, where your speedballers is very brightly coloured, dressed very brightly colours. The markers differ differently, like Reginald called them. It's actually called a marker, not a gun, just purely from a safety point of view. And then also when you play the game, obviously with speedball you want a light type of marker, something that you can hide with behind a bunker and things like that. Obviously, if you play more bush or Milsim style, you want more a
camouflage and
something that looks like an AK or whatever the guys that seriously into
we
it.
refer to the speedballers as Power Rangers just because of the bright colours. But the guys take it serious. They look very good in what they play. And anyway, it's not like cheap. It's proper, good quality clothing, and it's just good.
Who is the typical person that plays it? Is it guys? Is it girls? Is it young? Is it old?
You get all of them, but I think on the older side there's less people, definitely. But all the races, everyone plays. There's no exception. But most of them are like you guys that's just out of school. On the Milsim side, definitely.
Yeah, on the speedball side, believe it or not, I think in the RPL specifically, we've got about, I would say, 37% of our players is below 19.
Oh,
so 12, 13, and they love the sport.
SAfm Sports Special.